Okay, we've already talked a little bit about heart and soul, that descending thirds progression. Am I the last person on earth who still gets elementary level students to do heart and soul duets with her at lessons? I actually give lesson time for this because I think it's really important, and I always have a good time. Anyway. It's also a really important progression, and it's going to come up many, many times. So I am thinking, yes, we're doing a heart and soul duet, and yes, I am charging for this. However, it is the fundamental progression of at least a gazillion pieces of music. In fact, I have an older adult student who was having trouble learning Blue Moon. We were doing it without music. This was one of our off-road exercises. But he didn't have any trouble playing Heart and Soul. So I thought, okay, I think we can work with this. So we decided to stop doing Blue Moon. It just wasn't working. It was too frustrating. I said, fine, let's just do Heart and Soul. I really like that song. Can we do it in E flat major? Seemed like an odd request, but sure. So we did Heart and Soul in E flat major. And I said, can we look at some different accompaniment patterns for heart and soul? Sure. So we got this kind of thing going. And I said, do you mind if I do a little fooling around in the treble? I'll work with you. We'll just have a duet. So I started playing Blue Moon, and he was maintaining his progression. He was stumbling over the harmony. He was in the key of E flat major. We started out in C. Everything was going well. And then I got, hey, you tricked me. Yes, I tricked you, but you... So anyway, he plays Blue Moon just fine. Yeah. So the descending third sequence. Of course, if you play it like that, you've got a bunch of parallels. So what tends to happen with the descending thirds progression is that it morphs into Pachelbel. We start to put other chords in between. And when we do that, we have another very familiar progression. And we can look at this with root position chords, or we can look at it with some inversions. By the way, as soon as we've done that, we've just learned how to harmonize the major scale, or at least one of the myriad ways you can harmonize a major scale, whether it's a major descending scale in the bass, or a major descending scale starting on the median. In the right hand. So we end up with Pachelbel. Now, that would be definitely a teaching moment. Do most of your students know the Pachelbel canon? On a weekly basis, does someone come into the studio and say, I really like this song? And they start to hum it, or they've got it on their iPod, or they mispronounce Pachelbel's name, and you know that your number has come up, and it's time to work on the Pachelbel canon. So there are lots of ways of thinking of this. I usually don't tell them, well, it's really a variant of the descending thirds progression, and we avoid parallels by putting root position chords in the middle, and we end up with this progression. So I use this as an example of how I can build some vocabulary into or plant some vocabulary that I'm going to draw on later. So how do you figure it out? Well, you go down a fourth, then you go to the neighbor, and you go down a fourth. Then you go to the neighbor, and you go down a fourth, and then you turn around and come back with a cadential 4/5 idea. Or we can say, well, it's do, so, la, mi. That's another way of thinking about it. And that's a valuable way, one I'm not saying a lot about today, just because not everyone's on the same page with solfege. Or we can say, well, you know what? We might not want to stay in C major forever. So let's think of it in a way that will allow us to travel. Let's say that it's 1 to 5, 6 to 3, 4 to 1, 4 to 5. Because that's something I can pack up and take anywhere. I'm not thinking of it as C, G, A, E. That keeps me in C major. I want to be able to go places. And so we'll go places. We'll go to G and say, does it work? 1 to 5, 6, 3, 4, 1. Eventually I want to end up in D, but I do take the long way around. I'll probably put them into some dreadful flat keys first. Anyway, we'll end up in D. And we might add inversions. And so it can become an improvisation exercise. It is a harmony exercise. It's definitely a Neuro-Harmony exercise. Okay, another progression, the ascending fourths. Well, textbooks will often tell you that the ascending fourths is an effort to move from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, but without parallels, because if you did this, it would be horrible. You just can't work with that, can you? That would be a disaster. So, in order to avoid that, we can put root position chords in the middle. So we have all these sequences, and as I said, probably the pachelbel is the student's first pick or favorite, and the cycle of fifths descending is the most widely used. You'll find numerous examples, but you might want to explore the other two as well. Then, having had the student working on chord crawls from a tender age, we can probably throw some descending fifth sequences at them that employ sevenths, and these sound really beautiful. That was descending fifths with inversions used. These are all diatonic sevenths. We find examples of this in Bach all the time, all the time.